Hi, welcome to Books and Bocadillos. My name is Mariandrea, and this is the Mid-Year Book Freakout tag. I've been trying to get this tag made for a couple of weeks now, and so hopefully this time around it'll be a success. In the hopes that it will be, I have a cup of tea here. I'm drinking a black tea rose, Tulsi rose tea, and I am ready to get started. I am using the prompts that Angelia at the channel Read and Reread used. I really liked her her layout of the video, like the prompts that she answered in her tag. So I'm taking that and I'll credit Angelia's. I know Angelia borrowed and adapted from other content creators, so I'll make sure to give credit to the people that she took inspiration from. And I've also recently watched Bert and Sean's Mid-Year Book Freakout tag at Story Time, and I really liked their author crush. So I'll try to include that in this as well. So question number 1, best sequel. The only sequel I've read this year is Murder and Mayman by Mia Pimansala. If you've been around on my channel, you know that I am a fan of Tita Rosie's Kitchen Mystery series by Mia Pimansala. Murder and Mayman is book number 5? 4. Book number 4. I think it's book number 4 in the series. And I enjoyed it. I gave this book 3 stars. It is a cozy. It is a fun cozy. It was fun. This particular one felt a little bit slower to me. It took me a few weeks to get through it, and I think maybe that's why I gave it 3. But all in all, it's fun. I really feel like you can hear the author's voice in the writing, and I love that. And by this time in the series, you kind of feel like you're in it, you know the characters, and you're friends with them. So I felt like it was written in a very laid back tone, almost as if Leela, who's the main character, the female sleuth in this series, she's talking to you as a friend. And so it's cozy, it's nice. The author does have an author's note at the beginning, so there are trigger warnings to look for, and you can see that the content warnings are like in the beginning. So just there are warnings, so if you're a sensitive reader, do look out for those. So this is the best sequel of the year. Question number 2, a new release pending to be read. I don't have a physical copy of this. I have it on my Kindle, and I think I also have it as an audio. It is Oye by Melissa Mogollon. I first heard about this from Vanessa Diaz at Book Riot. She talked about it on the Book Riot podcast, and she talked about it using some of my favorite buzzwords. So it was telenovela, family drama, and told in conversations. And so I really am looking forward to that. I love a family drama. I love it when it's like has a comedic bent to it. And I think it might. And I also really enjoy telenovela vibes. So I'm really excited to get to it. I got that for my birthday. It was my birthday gift to myself, and I have not gotten to it yet. So I'm still looking forward to it. It did come out in the month of May. Question number 3, most anticipated release. So back to Tita Rosie's Kitchen Mystery series. Book number 5 in the series is Guilt and Ginatan. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but Guilt and Ginatan is due to be released in November of this year. And I'm really looking forward to it because I think the timing is going to be perfect. It'll be a cozy mystery set in the fall. I think it's set also in the month of November, and it's going to be released in November. So I feel like the timing is kismet, and I am very excited for it. Question number 4, biggest disappointment. My biggest disappointment this year was How to Be Eaten by Maria Adelman. This was our spring book read for my In Real Life book club, and I really wanted to love it. The premise of it is, I think 5 fairy tale heroines are recruited as modern day, like unfortunate celebrities by way of their fairy tale dramas, and they are modern day women living in New York City, and they are recruited for a therapy support group for trauma survivors. And I was expecting it to be more of like a process group where maybe you get to go deeper into the stories. And as someone who is familiar with therapy groups and has experience facilitating therapy groups, I didn't feel like it met my expectations. But of course, that is the premise, and in the end, it felt more like a romp to me, and it was very chaotic, and hence romp, right? I just felt like it wasn't what I was expecting. I think I had Marcela Serrano's 10 Women in my head when I thought of it, and I was expecting something like Marcela Serrano's 10 Women, 10 Mujeres, and it just wasn't. And I really loved Marcela Serrano's 10 Women, so I think maybe that's why I was just extra disappointed. But do not be discouraged from reading it. I rated it 2 stars because it just did not meet my expectations. It could have been that my expectations were too high. It could have been that I was expecting something completely different, and so it didn't work for me. My in real life friends in my in real life book club both rated it 5 stars. So to them, it was a hit and they loved it. So you might like it too. Next question is biggest surprise. My biggest surprise was Death Comes to the Archbishop by Willa Cather. I read this as a buddy read with Melinda at A Web of Stories. I know I love Willa Cather. My Antonia is one of my all-time favorite books, and it's probably a book that I've read and reread several times. I was expecting to like Death Comes to the Archbishop, but Death Comes to the Archbishop felt like a very quiet novel, and I thought I'd like it, but I didn't realize just how much I would actually really, really like it and love it. Question number 6, favorite new author, and I might say maybe this is the author crush. So my favorite new author, an author that I've discovered, and I've been crushing on their work for this year, is Cali Fajardo Anstine. I have heard of Cali Fajardo Anstine's name and work for a while. Her book of short stories, Sabrina and Corina, had been on my TBR for years. Finally got to it in May for my birthday bingo card. It was one of the books that was on my birthday bingo card. And I am still reading through that short story collection. I'm a bit of a slow reader especially when it comes to short stories. But I'm really enjoying it. I'm really, really enjoying it. I love her writing so much that I immediately, as soon as I finished the first 2 or 3 stories in that short story collection, I bought Cali Fajardo Anstine's next book that was published, and it was Women of Light. I intended to read that for June on the Range, and I didn't get to it, but it's on my shelves. It's a new book that I've hauled recently, and I am so excited to get to it, and I'm really looking forward to reading everything that Cali Fajardo Anstine writes. She is my author crush for the first half of 2024. I don't know, she might just be it for the whole of 2024. I can't imagine another author surprising me and really, really making me as excited as Cali Fajardo Anstine has. this year. Next question. Newest favorite character, and maybe we'll say this is the whole crush character. I mean, sure, why not if you want to call it that, but my favorite character so far this year, fictional character, has been Mila from Kate Quinn's The Diamond Eye. Mila is amazing. She is a badass. She is so incredible. I just loved her so much as a character. At the beginning of the novel, she's a PhD student. She's a librarian. She's getting her PhD in history. She's a bookworm. So all of just that feels very relatable in the sense of I would want to be her. She's a mom. She's in the romance department. She's not well off. She's married to her husband. They don't have a good relationship. So, when the war comes, she goes to war. Russia gets into the World War II, and she goes to fight for Russia, and she is the first female Soviet sniper, and her character is actually based on the real life first female sniper for the Soviet Union and during World War II. So she's amazing. I loved her story. I loved her character. Definitely my favorite. Question number 8. Saddest book I've read this year. The saddest book I've read. Okay, the saddest book I've read in the first half of the year, because I recently read a heart-wrenching, oh my God, pull my heart out, tear it all up kind of a book. But that is just finished today, read in the month of July, so it doesn't count. So prior to this month, the saddest book I'd read in the first half of the year was Elena Knows by Claudia Piñeiro. My In Real Life Book Club read this book. We met in January, so I read this book in January, and it was the saddest book. It is about Elena, who is an octogenarian, and she has advanced stage Parkinson's, and her disability is very evident, and she is being dismissed in a lot of ways, and she feels unseen and unheard as she is trying to uncover what happened to her daughter, who has been found dead in a local church. And the authorities seem to be thinking that Elena's daughter committed suicide, and Elena wants to believe something different happened. And so she's trying to uncover the truth, and she goes on this journey, and it's kind of told in the matter of a day or two. And as Elena grapples with what happened to her daughter, and it is just such a sad book because it goes back and forth in time, and you get to see the relationship between mother and daughter, and what a sad relationship it was, and what a strained relationship it was, and the burdens that we all carry, and the conversations that it sparked was really, really good. So it's the saddest book, but I think it's a book worth the read. Next, a book that made you happy. A book that made me happy is Roll With It by Jamie Sumner. I read this book for middle grade March. It is the story of, I believe her name is Allie. Such a sweet 7th grader. I think it's Ellie. Ellie is a wheelchair user. She's a 7th grader. She lives with her mom. Mom is single head of household, single parent family. Mom decides that she needs to go take care of her father, who has Alzheimer's disease. and takes Ellie with her to move from the suburbs to rural America. And Ellie is now starting in a new school, so she is meeting new people, making new friends, and grappling with issues regarding her family, her grandparents' situation, and her disability, and the fact that she's using a wheelchair, and what that means for how people treat her, and how she has a sense of agency for herself. And I mentioned a few months back when I talked about this book, I think in like a wrap up of sorts, I mentioned that if this book were a food, it would be a jelly donut, a jelly filled donut. The outside is like the family, and the best part of a jelly donut is the jelly filling inside the donut. And I think that the jelly filling in this novel is the friendship that is portrayed. Ellie and her newfound friends are so sweet and so easy to root for and just love. And it made me happy to see such a sweet group of friends. So yeah, that book made me so happy. Question number 10, favorite book to film adaptation. I'm going to say The Three Body Problem is one that I started watching, and it made me so intrigued that I actually went and bought the book. I had never heard of The Three Body Problem, and I became aware of it because of the Netflix series, and I paused it and went out and got the book because now I really want to read the book. So maybe that's my favorite so far. And then a book that I wanted to share that I really, really loved this year that I think would make a great TV series adaptation is The Bandit Queens. I could see, when I was listening to the audiobook of The Bandit Queens, I could see it play out on the screen. I could see the comedic elements really working well, like that. The absurd physical humor, and if you've read it, you know what I mean. There are scenes that feel very, very comedic, and it would just be fun to see it all play out. It is a very dark and difficult novel, and a lot of themes that are very, very sad, and I think that's why the humor does well, and I really would like to see it on the screen. Next question is favorite video that you've created on your channel. And I talked about this over and over again. I think my favorite video so far that I created this year is the book review for Prime Meridian. When I first started my channel, I was not interested in making book reviews, but Kelly from Books I'm Not Reading put out a video about why make book reviews, and that video really spoke to me, resonated with some of my fears about doing a book review, and Kelly inspired me to post this book review for this novel that I'd spent a whole year just like thinking about consistently. I read Prime Meridian, which is a novella by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I read that last year in March. I have a thing about reading books about Mars in March. So last year I did this whole book about Mars, this whole like reading event about Mars. So I read a bunch of books about Mars or set in Mars, and so this was one of those books that I read, and I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I couldn't stop thinking about the protagonist Angelia. So this year I did the book review, and then I followed it up with an original tag that I titled Mixtape for Angelia, and in it I created a mixtape. So as I was reading and rereading the novella, I created a playlist on Spotify. Then I curated that list down to a mixtape. And so I posted songs for Angelia because I'd been thinking about her for so long. So I think that those two videos are just kind of a little bit of my love for this novella and this character, and So de Moreno Garcia. Question number 12. The most beautiful book that you've read this year. I read this book. It was probably one of the first books I read this year in the month of January, and it's The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow. This is a beautiful book. It's got this gorgeous cover that I cannot wait to use at I'm inspired to create a layout in my reading journal based on this cover, like the doorknob and the flowers all around. It's just such a beautiful cover. I also love the deckled edges. I am team deckled edges, as I've shared in previous videos. And I think this book is beautiful. Question number 13 is books you've learned the most from. The book I've learned the most from is actually a cookbook. It's Vegan Boards by Kate Casby. I have been making boards from this for years. I've had this book on my cookbook shelves for a few years now, maybe like 3 years. This year, particularly recently, in the last couple of months, I think since my mother-in-law's passing, I've had people visiting, and I've felt inspired to just make this an easy way to entertain, is just to have a board available for when people visit you. So I've learned so much just in the last month and a half, maybe 2 months, from making and remaking some of these boards to the point where I can almost make them without instructions. There was one particular time that I had my family over, and I made the chilled noodles with spicy peanut sauce. And I made the spicy peanut sauce by the recipe, and then I needed to make a separate batch, but I needed to take out an ingredient that was in the original recipe, and I pretty much just did it without any instructions, just off of like intuition and memory. Was able to replace things without looking for replacement advice, and it turned out great. I got a lot of compliments about it, and about the sauce that I made just intuitively. And yeah, I feel like this book is teaching me a lot about entertaining and vegan food. Next question, books. I'm looking at my notes on my lap. Books you need to read by end of year. So when I first recorded this video, I had said Real Self-Care by Pooja Lakshmin, MD. I've read that already in the last 2 weeks. So I think another book that I have on my shelves that I really want to get to is this one, Warrior Girl Unearthed by Angelia Bowie. So I read Firekeeper's Daughter a few years ago and loved it. I think it was maybe 2 years ago that I read Firekeeper's Daughter. I absolutely loved it. Couldn't stop recommending it. I think I purchased that book, and I think I've actually gifted it at least twice. I really, really love Firekeeper's Daughter. So this is the next one. It is not a sequel. It has maybe some interconnectedness with Firekeeper's Daughter, but it's not necessarily a follow-up to it, and it's not a sequel. So I am looking forward to it. I bought this as a hardcover when it came out because Angelia Bowie quickly, as soon as I read Firekeeper's Daughter, became an auto-buy author. So I purchased this. I may have pre-ordered it. And I love that I did because it doesn't have any of the stickers on it. It's just a fresh, brand new cover. And yeah, it's about time. I really want to get to it this year. A little bit about it is, says Perry Firekeeper Birch has always known who she is. The laid-back twin, the troublemaker, the best fisher on Sugar Island. Her aspirations won't ever take her far from home, and she wouldn't have it any other way. But as the already striking number of missing Indigenous women continues to rise, as her family becomes embroiled in a high-profile murder investigation, and as greedy grave robbers seek to profit off what belongs to her Anishinaabe tribe, Perry begins to question everything. In order to reclaim this inheritance for her people, Perry has no choice but to take matters into her own hands. She can only count on her friends and allies, including her overachieving twin and a charming new boy in town with unwavering morals. Old rivalries, sister secrets, and botched heists will not stop her from uncovering the mystery before the ancestors and missing women are lost forever. So, Warrior Girl on Earth. And question number 15. The best book I read in the first half of the year, because I think I may have just finished reading a book that tops everything I've read this year. But for now, for the first 6 months of 2024, the best book I read in the first 6 months was, can you guess? The Women by Kristen Hanna. I read this book in the month of May, I think. April or May. I loved it so much. It was so good. And now as I say that, I'm kind of like, oh, that I just read another book that I thought was even better. But anyway, this was my favorite for the first half. The Women by Kristen Hanna. Now I have my own books and bocadillos superlatives. Superlative for the most rereadable book. I don't have it with me. It's on my shelves, but I don't have it in front of me right now. But the most rereadable book, so a book that I've reread this year, and I have reread and will continue to reread, is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I listened to a new audiobook production of it, new to me audiobook production of it earlier this year. I didn't make a big thing of it. I don't think I posted about it anywhere. I didn't really talk about it. I've read The Great Gatsby before. It's kind of one of those books that I keep coming back to because I keep studying the themes, especially regarding the American dream. And so I reread it. I listened to a new audiobook production, new narrator, new production overall. And yeah, I'm going to continue to reread this book. So that's the most rereadable of 2024. The superlative for favorite buddy read of 2024. So my favorite buddy read of 2024 was Shark Heart by Emily Havoc. And I did this buddy read with Crystal at Viber Artsy and her Discord during the week of Weird. And the reason why this is my favorite buddy read is because Shark Heart had been on my radar, on my TBR for at least a year. I think it was a book that I wanted to read last year, didn't get to it. I knew it was going to be weird, and the week of Weird seemed like a perfect time to read it. Crystal and I both had it on our list as books we wanted to read. She put it up on her Discord. Other people joined us, and then I read it, and the first half of it was difficult. I struggled. I almost DNF'd this book because I felt like a little bit of whiplash, because it's not only is it dual or multiple points of view, but it's also dual timeline. So you kind of keep going back and forth in time and then have different perspectives. And it was so, I think, not jarring, but it felt a little bit like driving a stick shift. Felt like that. And so it was like, oh, I wasn't sure what to do. I think I put it in Crystal's Discord that I was struggling, and Crystal was really supportive and encouraging, and she was ahead of me in the reading, so she was like, no, keep going. So I did, and I persevered, and I'm so glad I did. In the end, I really, really liked it. I think I gave it 4 stars. So I really, really enjoyed it. I'm so glad I read it. I'm so glad I finished it. And sometimes I think that's why buddy reads are so good, because when it's hard to get through a book and there's somebody there to pull you along and then help you either make the right decision, whether it would have been to DNF or whether it would have been to persevere. In this case, I chose to persevere, and it paid off. I think the way that this book ended had a good payoff, at least for me. So I'm happy I stuck with it. Thank you, Crystal, for buddy reading this with me and for the encouragement to keep on. Definitely worth it. A foodie favorite. So a book that had food writing or food references that made a new experience for me. So for this one, I chose Symphony of Secrets by Brendan Slocum. This was another book that was a buddy read. So I did this buddy read with Melinda out of Web of Stories back in February, and this was such a good book. So the foodie references in this book were, one, the protagonist, the modern day protagonist, because there's 2 different timelines going. So the modern day protagonists who are on this mission to uncover the secret behind a symphony, like old symphony, they were always eating pizza. So I had so many cravings for pizza just from reading about their pizza references. But the reason why this gave me a new foodie experience is because there was a scene in this novel in which these modern day protagonists go to interview a family in the South, and they get invited in, and they get an array of snacks. Like in Spanish, you would say botanas. And so the family puts out chips in salsa with Old Bay seasoning. So they sprinkle the chips with Old Bay seasoning. So it's Old Bay seasoning chips, tortilla chips, with the salsa. My mouth is watering just thinking about it. So I messaged Melinda and I was like, I'm going to try this. So I did. I got a bowl of tortilla chips, and I got a little bowl of salsa, and I sprinkled Old Bay seasoning onto the tortilla chips, and I tried it, and it was delicious. It was like having shrimp cocktail. My mouth is just watering. So that was my favorite, my foodie favorite. So sticking with a little bit of food references, a palate cleanser. For me, the best palate cleanser this year has been Girlfriend on Mars by Deborah Willis. Again, I have a thing about Mars. In March, I read this book in March. So this was also following Shark Heart. So after I read Shark Heart, I read this one. And the cool thing about it was that Shark Heart had multiple points of view, and so did Girlfriend on Mars. It had dual points of view. And this was started out like such a funny book. It read like a romp. It did get serious and a little dark towards the end, but it was a lot of fun. Starting out, it was a lot of fun. The dark and serious at the end, I mean, it was a romp, so it had to get a little dark and serious, I think. but for me, it was a palate cleanser. I had fun with it. I laughed with it. I I felt like I let go a little bit, so it felt a little bit like a fun read. Um, I would read anything by Deborah Willis again. I think she's a good writer, and I enjoyed it so much. So it was my favorite palate cleanser of the year. For the superlative most likely to cure a reading slump, I have this book, Inciting Joy by Ross Gay. So I know for sure the Book of Delights is definitely one that has worked for me as a cure for a reading slump. This is a new to me book. I've only read the first essay in this collection. It's a collection of essays. And I loved it. I loved it so much. I think that this is a good palate cleanser, as is the Book of Delights, as is anything Ross Gay writes, whether it be his poetry collection or essay collections. This writer is my go-to for a reading slump. I just saw like Ada Limon's blurb on the front cover says it's brilliant, and it is. It is. Oh my gosh, this first essay was so good. I enjoyed it so much. As a foodie, I enjoyed it so much. Okay. Best Booktube made me purchase. So, also inspired by a buddy read, my favorite Booktube made me purchase was Marina by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. So, this is a book that I buddy read with Ellen at Ellen Made Book Club. We read this book we chose to read this book in the month of May as part of our Horror Mayhem TBR. It was on my birthday bingo as well. I started by listening to the audiobook and kind of going between the audio and the Kindle. And then I loved it so much. Spoiler, I know Ellen and I are going to, in the future, have a collab video where we talk about our thoughts about this. So spoiler to that, I loved it. And loved it so much I needed the physical copy. So Booktube made me do it. Thank you, Ellen, for adding to my library. And this is my first Carlos Ruiz Zafón, so I have not yet read The Shadow of the Wind, which is his most well-known book. But I'm really glad I started here with Marina. I think this was a really good entry to Carlos Ruiz Zafón, and I'm looking forward to everything that he writes. My favorite book cover. I know we talked about the most beautiful book, and I talked about the most beautiful book overall with the deckled edges and the cover and everything just to hold. It was a paperback. It was the 10,000 Doors of January. But my favorite book cover that I have, and it's also one that I'm looking forward to, is Magical / Realism Essays on Music, Memory, Fantasy, and Borders by Vanessa Angelica Villarreal. I also heard about this on the Book Riot podcast from Vanessa Diaz. I think Vanessa Diaz is just my not my book twin because I don't know her very well, but she's kind of somebody that when she doles out recommendations, I immediately trust and purchase. I think my book twin on Booktube might be Farah from Bookstalgic. I think she might be my book twin. But anyway, so this book is my favorite cover. I have like the hardcover, but I love it. Like the whole color scheme of it, the fonts. I like the changes in fonts. I just love kind of like the mixed media feel of it. It is so cool. Love like the way that the aged edges look, like the torn edges that aged. Yeah, it's my favorite cover. So this book, it's a new release. I bought it as a new release. As soon as I heard about it on the Book Riot podcast, I purchased it. And it's the book that my In Real Life book club is reading for the summer, so I'll be reading this very, very soon in the month of August, and really looking forward to it. So this is my favorite book cover. And I want to end with my mid-year favorite reading snack. So my favorite reading snack, here it is. I recently discovered these. This is not an ad. I do not get any kind of payment for talking about this. But 7 grain-free cookies, fresas con crema, dairy-free, gluten-free. These are my favorite. So I love them so much. They're tiny little cookies, about the size of this, and they are so like easy to just dainty and easy to eat while I'm reading with like a cup of tea. I really, really love these. These are my new favorite. So as of right now, mid-year, this is my favorite reading snack. I absolutely love it. Okay, so that is it. That is the mid-year book freakout tag / books and bocadillos superlatives. Thank you so much for watching. Hasta la próxima.